and gentlemen, Joe and Anthony Russo.
Wait, before we get started, I just wanted to ask who in this crowd, after this panel, is going to storm Area 51 with us?
Don't do that.
We have so much to get through in this panel. We're gonna jump right on in. First of all, I want to start by saying thanks to everyone who's here for basically the fans for supporting all these movies.
Yeah, without question. I mean, we've been here many times. We've been up on the stage and said it a few times. We want to say it again. Thank you. Please give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you so much for supporting us, for supporting these movies. You made the Marvel Universe happen, and we couldn't be more grateful.
So I know we have to get into Endgame stuff, but what do I have to do? Listen, I loved your 4 Marvel movies. I think everyone in this room loved your 4 Marvel movies. What do I have to do, and what do all of us in this room have to do to sort of get you to come back in a few years and direct Secret Wars?
I mean, it would twist my arm. That was a favorite book of ours growing up. I think we mentioned a few times how much we loved Secret Wars. I read the whole series in one sitting, and when I was 12.
Yeah, you got that, and you got this one.
I'll just let them know you found that.
Our run at Marvel was, among the best creative times we've ever had. So, we would love to work with Marvel again, and maybe at some point in the future that makes sense, and maybe it's on Secret Wars.
So I know again we have to move into Endgame, but do you envision Secret Wars as a 2-parter or a 3-parter?
You really like Secret Wars, don't you? I don't know. That could be a 6-parter. It was a big book.
Sure. Again, I know we have to move into Endgame, but do you think that Beyonder should be a part of the Secret Wars movie? Or do you think it could be something that from the newly acquired Fox titles?
Why don't we just get Marcus and McFeely back out here and really dig into it? You guys want?
You guys up for a story-breaking session on Secret Wars?
Again, I know we have to go to Endgame. I think in a Secret Wars movie that we could see like an alt version of a Tony Stark or Steve Rogers, because anything is sort of possible.
No, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not.
I'll leave you guys be on Secret Wars. How does it? You guys are about $5 short of breaking Avatar's box office record. How does it feel to be that close?
I mean,
It's shocking, yeah, it's shocking. I mean, look, again, it goes back to the fans, the fact that people have responded to Endgame in this way, been following these characters for so many years now, and these stories for so many years. I mean, I think it's a cathartic experience for all of us to see it get to this point in the storytelling, and you saw that show up in terms of how the movie played globally. So it's a big thrill. James Cameron has always been an idol of ours. He's sort of fed our passion for filmmaking from the beginning, and so to be so close to one of his great films is really special.
I'm curious, you guys, listen, I've been with you guys a number of times, and you don't fight. You guys are like simpatico, but what was the last big fight you guys had, and why?
I think we got to go all the way back to, are we getting Mexican or Indian for lunch today? I think that was a pretty big fight.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of our last big fight. Was it about the length of Captain Marvel's hair? Was that the big fight? I don't know.
Was that a real fight?
No, it was a discussion. It was a long discussion.
Maybe a several-month discussion, but not.
And I think it's still a discussion.
I mean, to be fair, like our process is, we sort of have this like Socratic dialogue between ourselves. It's just point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint. That's kind of how we saw through all of our issues. So you can look at our entire collaboration as one long argument.
On Endgame, Infinity War and Endgame, who ruined the most takes and why?
I mean, that's like a very close race, I think, between, who did you say, Mackie and Ruffalo?
Yeah, for different reasons. Ruffalo does it because he sort of gets kind of lost in his performance, and Mackie does it because he gets lost outside of his performance. Mackie likes to make a lot of jokes on set. So.
Who can always nail it in one?
Scarlett. Yeah. Scarlett can always nail it.
That's why she's Black Widow.
Hardest VFX shot to get right in Infinity War and then in Endgame.
Well, Infinity War, I think it was conceptually, it was
The dusting.
The dusting, yes. I think that took a while to understand what it would look like. I think we went through a really iterative process of trying to figure out visually how to represent that in a way that felt satisfying and fulfill the idea that they were disapparating and not just falling dead. That the essence of who they were was being absorbed into the universe. Endgame.
I don't even know.
I think it probably was one of the shots you just saw, right? Was it the portals took quite a long time.
Yeah.
That sequence itself it was one of the last things I think we delivered.
Yeah, that was difficult. Yeah.
'Cause it was a lot of it was reliant on the score and pacing, rhythm.
Smart Hulk was also quite difficult early in the process.
Oh, that's right.
We worked on that, a long time before we started shooting. We were developing the process of how did we combine Mark Ruffalo, as Banner and the Hulk, and sort of make it find the sweet. I mean, really, all these visual effects, whether you're talking about it in terms of what happened after Thanos snaps, or what Smart Hulk is, it's really kind of trying to find a balance between what looks interesting and cool and sort of emotionally resonant and not silly. It's because you're dealing with something so fantastical. It's really hard to massage it to the point where it feels real and relatable, as opposed to sort of just something that's like just too sort of strange to accept in a moment of disbelief.
What day do you wish you could relive in filming on Infinity War and Endgame?
Relive.
An Endgame? Well, Endgame is easier.
It's got to be
Yeah.
Robert's last day of shooting on Endgame, which happened to be the "I am Iron Man" line. By the way, has anyone not seen the movie? Because I don't want to be giving out spoilers. If you haven't seen it, you should leave now. The "I am Iron Man" moment, I think it was very emotional because it was not only such a poetic line for Robert to have as his last line, but it was his last day, and it was on the soundstage that was next door to the soundstage where he did his first screen test for Iron Man 12 years earlier. So it was a very...
Couldn't have been more full circle.
Yeah, it was a very emotional day for everyone.
Yeah.
Endgame?
Yeah. Or in Infinity.
Infinity War, what do you think?
Relive. Maybe. I guess the first day of shooting was really interesting on Infinity War because we were dealing with. That was the first day where we had the Guardians. We were shooting on Titan, and it was the scene where Tony is trying to get everybody on the same page, but he's having trouble wrangling the Guardians. Peter Parker's there, and it was an interesting day because that was the challenge of these two movies, was combining all these different franchises in a way and on a scale that had never been done before. So for our very first day to have to mix Tony Stark with Peter Parker with the Guardians, that was a very potent cocktail to begin the evening with, so to speak.
I think we actually have some fan questions that were sent in.
Okay.
The first one is about the Hulk.
What do you guys think?
Yes?
I don't know. All right, how many
Question was,
people here
not
would
make the
think
new Hulk
that
the smartest and the strongest from Mark Ruffalo?
Banner is now the smartest Avenger? Okay. Now Banner tried to solve time travel, but he didn't. Who solved time travel? Okay, how many people here think Tony is the smartest Avenger?
Yeah!
And now, most importantly, How many of you think?
I'll say this. I know there's one member of this audience, my daughter Grace, who would say that Shuri is the smartest.
Shuri's the smartest Avenger. All right, next question.
The next one comes from someone named Chris.
Which
Chris?
Hey, hey, Anthony. Hey, Joe. After Steve returned all the Infinity Stones and finally got his dance with Peggy, what do you think was the next thing that he made sure to do?
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, perhaps he and Peggy tried to make a baby. I don't know.
I think he went to the bathroom because it took him a long time to return all those stones. So he had, he was holding it for a while.
But it's interesting. I mean, if you think about it in terms of the sort of alternate reality question. I know there's many different theories about sort of how this stacks up, and I know Chris and Steve were just talking about some of them.
Don't go there.
Steve can, depending on where you go with the alternate reality, Steve can do a lot of things. Like he could go rescue Bucky from Hydra. He could route Hydra out of S.H.I.E.L.D. He could go find himself in the ice and figure out sort of a rotation where the two Steves can take turns and he can spend more time at home with Peggy. I don't know. Lots of stories.
He had a second question.
What was the second question? Most stressful movie?
Yeah. I think most stressful. You want to do that?
Most stressful had to be Infinity War, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because we had Endgame right behind it, and I think having those two movies up against each other certainly made it very difficult to focus on those two massive stories at the same time. It was really taxing to everybody, the crew, everyone. Least stressful.
Probably Winter Soldier. I think Winter Soldier was, even though it was an ensemble, it was a small ensemble, and as the movies got exponentially larger in terms of what the cast was and the scope of the story, they became more challenging just on a sort of a logistical level to accomplish this, and the storytelling level became very complex. So I think that we kind of the arc got more stressful as it went.
I believe we have another Chris that sent in a question.
Which Chris is this?
Hello, what's up everybody? Chris Hemsworth here. Slimmer version than the last time you probably saw me in support through all of the Marvel films, but I gotta say, what a way to finish, and that was just beyond all expectations, and we could not have done it without the fans. We love you guys. Woo! And I want to say thank you, and also to Joe and Anthony, the two handsome gentlemen sitting there on the stage in front of you. You guys, I want to ask you a question, right? Who do you think would be the better leader for the previously known group, Guardians of the Galaxy, as Guardians of the Galaxy? Me or that other guy? Quince or Quail or something? Yeah? Me? Thank you. I knew it anyway. Didn't even need to answer, but I appreciate it. Love you all. Wish I could have been there with you, but I hope to see you all sometime soon. And have an amazing time.
That wasn't really a question, that was more of a statement.
These are strange fan questions.
Yeah, well, we could maybe go to the next real question.
I think there's someone named Paul.
Okay.
Hello, Joe and Anthony. Hello, Comic-Con.
Yeah!
I'd love to be there with all of you, but I'm not. Joe, Anthony, I have a question. There's been some debate recently about who is the sexiest Chris. The best Chris in the Marvel universe. I don't care about best Chris. I care a little bit more about best Paul. I'm guessing number 2 is Bettany.
That's not why I'm phoning in this video. I have a question for you. If you had to rank best America's ass, which Chris would it be? Choose.
We're not even gonna touch this one. I'm gonna make you guys answer this one. All right, best America's ass.
Captain America.
Hemsworth. Pratt. Evans.
That settles it. Sorry, Paul.
We have one more fan question.
Okay.
I can smell it, Hall H. Again. Anthony, Joe, what's up? My creative brothers and brothers in truth. You having a good time? Yeah, I bet this is a heck of a panel. I got one for you. Biggest single difference between Tony Stark with I Am Iron Man at the press conference at the end of our first and I Am Iron Man to Thanos in Endgame. How do you encapsulate that? Brain teaser.
All right. Now that's a real question.
I guess difference. I think.
You can look at it a lot of different ways, but I think, we've talked about before, like the arc that Tony Stark went through, sort of beginning as this very egocentric person and sort of finally getting to a place of truly putting others in front of himself and sacrificing in that way. And I just think a really important sort of point on that arc is that at the end there, Tony had become a father. And I think, speaking as a father, there's something that happens to you when you reach that point in life, if you reach that point in life, where you are sort of suddenly aware that others have, your job in the universe is to sort of truly serve others in a way that just reaches to the core of your being. And I think that's the biggest change, sort of him having had a daughter and having sort of gone through the entirety of his arc. I think he was in a different place there when he said, I am Iron Man at the end.
We're moving into a new section of the panel. You could have directed, actually let me rephrase this. What are you guys going to direct next?
We're directing a movie called Cherry, starring a friend of ours named Tom Holland.
Little logo. Oh, by the way, we're going to be putting some stuff on this. Like when you see logos like this during the panel, because there's a lot more coming, you can take pictures of this stuff.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Just FYI. So with Cherry, where and when are you filming this thing?
So
We start filming in October, this is based on a best-selling book. It's a story set in Cleveland, Ohio, where we grew up. It's a story that's very near and dear to us. A lot of the locations in the book are locations that we grew up in and around. The author of the book actually worked at the same restaurant I worked at a few years after I worked there. And so this is a story about drug addiction and the opioid crisis told in a very fascinating and frank way. And it's touched us both. It's touched our families, the crisis, and so this is a very deeply personal movie for us. This was, the gentleman who wrote the book was someone who went through the same growth arc that we did in the same part of the city that we grew up in, and had a very different experience. And we want to tell his story.
I actually think we have a video that goes, maybe a little video we can play right now.
Sure. Gifted and somebody that we want to work with on almost all of our projects moving forward.
I'm just curious, is it going to be, because it's such an adult subject matter, is it going to be PG-13? Is it going to be rated R? Do you know?
It will be rated R. It's a very complicated movie. It's a very mature movie, and I think it doesn't have the sort of surface level sort of entertainment value that the Marvel movies have, of course. but there are really important stories that need to be told. And Joe and I are in a position now where we can get those movies made. And we want to use that sort of capital that we built up to tell important stories.
Speaking, you guys have a production company called Agbo. I think there's you might be able to get a logo up there. So you're essentially, if I'm not mistaken, you guys are like studio heads now, or am I wrong?
We
Of sorts.
we'd prefer a more disruptive term than studio heads, but no, we have a company called Agbo that we founded about 2 years ago, and it functions like a movie studio does. It can finance films and greenlight movies, and Anthony and I are the chairman of the company. And really the idea for the company came about through our process with Marcus McFeely while making 4 Marvel films that we worked on together. We would get in rooms and break story in a very disciplined and focused fashion. We had dates that we had to hit, and the 4 of us loved working together. So Marcus and McFeely are also partners in the company with us, and you know, it's a storyteller's studio is what we call it, because you know, we like to collaborate. Everyone who comes in to work with us the same way that the 4 of us collaborated on all those films. And also, Steven Soderbergh discovered my brother and I well over 20 years ago, and he held the door open for us to get into the business. And now we want to use Agbo to hold the door open for other young filmmakers to get into the business.
Another venture, if you will, that you worked with. You guys produced a movie with Chris Hemsworth, and you made it in India.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see the pattern with Agbo. We always envisioned Agbo as an artist's collective. And, you know, Joe and I, you know, work as a team, so the process of collaboration is at the center of everything we do every day. And we love to just keep expanding that circle, and we've encountered so many wonderful collaborators over the years. We've been able to bring many of them forward, like Chris Marcus and Steve McFeely, like Tom and now Chris Hemsworth, forward into Agbo in ways to sort of to give us all new opportunities to tell fresh stories.
We're running a little long, and so
Okay.
I want to ask you about Sam Hargrave.
Speed round.
Right,
Yeah.
Sam Hargrave directed the project. He has a crazy story with you guys, and I think there's a photo of him on set. If we could show it, but could you briefly talk about Sam?
Yeah, Sam is another example of the expanding circle of
That's not Sam.
collaborators.
That's Sam Hargrave.
This is Sam. Guess which one's Sam? So Sam started as Captain America's stunt double in Winter Soldier. That's where we met him for the first time, and he was an amazing stunt double, obviously. And on Civil War, we asked him to become elevate to the stunt coordinator. Then he started directing some second unit scenes for us as well. And finally, on this movie, he is the full-on director. And so him and Chris are sort of 2 of the people from our history that are now working together on this film.
We're moving into another chapter of this panel, and we're going to be jumping into 21 Bridges.
Yeah.
You basically continuing in the tradition of like this artistic collective, if you will, at your company. You recently worked with Chadwick Boseman again.
That's right.
Yeah.
We love Chadwick, another incredibly talented actor, someone that you know, we got to work with for the first time in Civil War when he introduced Black Panther to the world. You know, Anthony and I grew up loving genre movies, elevated genre movies, movies that had something to say beyond the genre, either thematically or metaphorically or socially. And 21 Bridges is a movie, the sort of concept of the film is that, you know, eight New York City police officers are killed at the beginning of the film, and Chadwick Boseman plays a detective who's been assigned to hunt down the killers, and wants to close down Manhattan for one night for a manhunt. And the movie does have a lot of social issues beyond being just an incredibly beautifully crafted thriller with an amazing performance from Chadwick, Stephan James, Taylor Kitsch. I think you know, it's one we're very proud of.
Yeah. So there are 21 bridges in and out of Manhattan.
So that's where the title comes from.
I actually think we have a little video.
All right.
Some logos and stuff, and I think you're going to be announcing some stuff that people haven't seen. So again, you can take some pictures.
By the way, Chadwick is incredible in that movie. Sorry, go ahead.
So I believe you have a few upcoming things at Agbo, the first of which is Magic the Gathering.
Yeah!
So what can you say about the project?
It's a project that we're partnering up with Netflix on. It's an animated project with certainly the potential, I think, in the future to maybe spin it off in a live action. You know, it's a game that we love. We're geeks, and we love Magic the Gathering. So we are excited to tell stories with it. And I don't know if you know the game or not, but if you're a fan of Jace or Chandra, get excited.
You are doing something with Michael B. Jordan.
We are. That's right. Another great friend and incredible actor.
Ooh!
This is a movie that we loved growing up, both versions, and the Steve McQueen version and the Pierce Brosnan version, and we are going to bring our own spin to it as producers. We have Matt Carnahan writing the script right now. Is one of the best, we think, one of the best writers in the business, and we have a brand new take on it. We couldn't be more excited to be working on that movie with Michael. And he's one of the great actors of his generation, without question.
The next one is Electric State.
Yeah.
There is
Marcus and McFeely, I think, talked about this on their panel. This is sort of a hauntingly beautiful graphic novel that I think Chris Marcus found. They are writing the script to that, and that alone is the reason to be excited about that project.
I believe the next one is something that you have not announced yet.
No, we haven't talked about this, and this is a favorite comic book of mine growing up. I have issue number 1 in a box in my closet, and I don't know if it's sort of a cult indie hit. I don't know if does anyone here know Grimjack? It's an incredible story, and
It's a deep cut.
Yes, it is a deep cut, and we're excited about bringing that one to life.
I was going to say that I knew that was coming, and I walked around Comic-Con Wednesday night looking for back issues, thinking I could get a jump on this, and it's impossible to find on the convention floor. So if you do find it, please get me a copy.
Nice.
The next one, when I heard, why don't you reveal what the next one is?
Okay.
Well, this was perhaps our favorite cartoon growing up.
Oh, nice!
Yeah, as you can see, we love this show, and I used to race home from school every day just to watch this at 4 o'clock. I think maybe you can tell we're slowly hunting down all of our favorite IP from our childhood, and we're going to convert them into stories that we're excited about. So we got our hands on Battle of the Planets.
When I learned that they got it, I let out a holy F because it meant so much to me. But I have to ask: so with Battle of the Planets, with Grimjack, are either of those things you could direct, or is it producing stuff?
We're producing Grimjack.
Yeah.
Does that mean you could direct Battle of the Planets?
We'll see.
Maybe. We'll see.
Is Battle of the Planets live action or animation?
If we were to do it, it would be live action.
Ooh.
Meaning, if you were to direct it.
If we were to direct it, we would direct it as a live action film.
Do you have I'm going to pepper you on this one. Do you have a screenwriter on that yet, or is it super early days?
Super early.
Very early days. Yeah, very early days.
Let me see what time it is. Oh yeah, we're going to get thrown off stage really soon. I think that do you have something for?
I do. I don't know. Is there anyone in this audience that's under the age of 14? No one? Come on, there's got to be someone who's under the age of 14.
Wait, I see.
Yeah.
I was waving.
I see some hands right over there.
How many people under the age of 14?
To the left, it's definitely.
Okay.
Oh, that kid's definitely under 14.
Oh, that kid's under 14. Can we do this? If you're under the age of 14, would you come up here for me? Would you mind coming up here?
What the?
Only if you're under the age of 14. If you have to be escorted, please have an adult with you. Okay? I'm right up to the gate here.
As the entire room comes scrolling out.
What is going on? Jesus, he's gonna just throw stuff
I
up.
can't stay in your seat if you're not. Uh-oh.
What's he
I
tossing?
thought there weren't any, but it wasn't anybody. There's hundreds.
Literally, there's 7,000 people.
Nice going, kids. One second. Maybe while he does that.
You want to, while they're doing that, you want to do a quick
Is there a
selfie?
question?
Yeah, no, I was going to say you should do a quick selfie and you should put something on the board. Right. I don't know if you want to do one. There's a pretty cool graphic. I want to
Yes,
give
those.
I want to give a huge thank you, by the way, to Funko, who gave out those pins that everybody. It's the only time you're going to get those Funko pins is in the room. I don't know if you want to stand up.
We're going to do the classic Comic-Con selfie.
The classic Comic-Con selfie. I just want to point out I had like 65 questions that we didn't get through. The 50 minutes goes very, very fast. We actually have one little last thing to show, but should we show it now or should we wait for Joe to finish with the t-shirts?
Why don't, he might be out of t-shirts, I think, by now. I'm sorry. Yeah, so.
For the kids.
Sorry, guys. We'll bring more t-shirts next time. Sorry.
Sorry, everyone. Sorry about that. We ran out.
If you're under 14,
We actually have like 3 minutes, and I want to.
They were signed, those t-shirts were signed by us, right?
Yeah, we signed those t-shirts. Please don't sell them on eBay.
I actually listen. I have one last question for you guys because it's one last question, and then we're going to show something. These movies are very physical. These movies are very physical on the actors. Can you sort of share any stories about what some of these actors have gone through? Maybe even specifically about Hemsworth and Evans.
Evans, when we were working on Winter Soldier, you guys saw that clip earlier. He did a lot of that fighting himself. He trained for months to do it. It's really important to us when we do fighting sequences that we have the actors do, because it adds a visceral quality to it, a level of realism. And he used to go home, beat up every night, bumps and bruises everywhere. So kudos to him for putting that effort into playing this part for you guys. And then
Similarly with Chris Hemsworth, you know, in order to play the larger, heavier Thor, he had to wear a really substantial bodysuit that was, you know, quite heavy, and so he had to, and also had to fight in that suit. So it's, you know, those fight sequences are difficult enough on the actors to sort of put them in sort of difficult costumes. It can compound things, and Hemsworth did actually end up hurting his back quite badly, unfortunately, but it's healed. But we had to postpone a lot of his shooting as a result of that injury. But thank goodness he came back from it. We finally shot him out.
finish his character.
I'm just going to say, I really do hope Secret Wars happens.
We know.
I would really love to see you guys, and I think everyone here would love to see you guys return to the Marvel Universe. But, ladies and gentlemen, the directors of Avengers Endgame, Joe and Anthony Russo, and as we step up and leave, we're premiering a bonus trailer for the home video release of a certain movie that you might have heard of.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. It's been really special.